Hi, this is David Teams. I'm the author of Godspeed, Voices of the Reformation, and you're listening to On Faith's Edge with Joe Taylor.
Everything in this life is going to disappoint us in some way. It could be the job, it could be the relationship, it could be that dream we've had, that home, that trip, and ultimately, this earth is not going to satisfy our deepest longings in the way that only Jesus can.
Well, hello. Thank you, David Teams, for the introduction. David is the author of my favorite devotional, Godspeed. As an author and sought-after speaker, songwriter, and historian, David is a deep, deep thinker about faith and faith stuff, God things. You'll love my conversation with David over at onfaithsedge.com/91. Love talking to David Teams every chance I get, whether it's on an interview, on a phone call, or just personally face-to-face. He is an all-around great guy, and like I said, an amazing deep thinker about faith and God stuff. Well, welcome to the 129th episode of On Faith's Edge. My name is Joe Taylor, recovering atheist and your servant in Jesus Christ. This is your place to hear conversations about God and living a life of faith in Jesus Christ. I am so excited for you to listen in on my conversation with today's guest, author and speaker, Ryan Atkins. Ryan has an amazing story. He sustained a spinal cord injury after a car accident. He was a thriving college student in 2009. After this car accident, he found himself paralyzed below the shoulders, wondering how life could still have any purpose whatsoever. And in his book, One Step Closer, How a Life-Altering Accident Led Me to Everything I Almost Missed, he writes how he discovered how hope is still possible no matter what the circumstances may be. His book delivers a timely message of hope and inspiration, urging readers to embrace the power of an internal perspective. I loved this conversation with Ryan. You'll hear the importance of an eternal perspective, his desire for healing, but moving forward with God's plan, the amazing love story between Ryan and his wife, Stephanie, and what it is to really be a man. This is a good one. Man, there have been some real heavy hitters recommending this book, Ryan. Bob Goff, New York Times bestseller. Mick Cronin. If you're from Cincinnati, we all know who Mick Cronin is, but he is right now the UCLA men's basketball head coach. And Brian Tome, senior pastor at Crossroads Church here in Cincinnati. What many people don't know about Crossroads Church is that is consistently, over the past several years, one of the top 5 fastest growing church, if not the fastest growing church in the nation. So real heavy hitters recommending this book, Ryan. Well done. Well done.
Thanks, Joe. Great to be with you today. And I'm just excited to share this message of hope with others. Why I believe that we can have hope no matter what our circumstances may be.
Why do you think, looking at these recommendations in the book and some of the others, why do you think One Step Closer has struck such a chord with these men?
I believe that we all have areas in our life that we recognize that not everything is going according to our plan of how we may have envisioned it for our lives. For me, that may have looked like getting knocked off course during my college days and taking a pause from the path to business success that I thought I was headed towards. But ultimately, we're all one step closer towards that next aspect of life that we think is going to satisfy all our deepest longings. And what I've realized and what I've come to better understand throughout the course of the past decade since my accident that led to paralysis is that putting my hope into anything besides Jesus and besides the fact that I have an eternity promised with him, then I'm going to be vastly disappointed if I'm putting in lesser things. And I believe that we all can resonate with that because we all try to put our hope in something, whether it's our physical health, our financial success, or a relationship that we think is going to fulfill every desire, when ultimately God is the only one that can fill that hole in our soul.
You start the book quoting Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And this is such a great quote. If you've not read Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl's book is quoted as much as any book that you hear, and it appears on all of those lists. Have you read Man's Search for Meaning?
Yes, it was a very powerful experience for me to really get exposed to Viktor Frankl's work, and really get an idea of, okay, this feeling that I've had that I do have a choice of how I can respond to what's happening. Okay, Frankl talks about that. He says we all have a choice of how we can respond to our suffering. We're all going to face something that's hard, that's difficult, but everything in our life can be stripped away except for the fact that we can choose how we respond. And I think that resonated and really gave me the motivation and the confidence to know that even though I may currently be paralyzed below the neck, even though I may have a tough situation right now, I have a choice about how I can respond and how I can make the most of my days. And I want to push forward with that, going forward in a way that is purposeful.
He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. What does that quote mean to you, Ryan?
So when I first came across this quote and Frankl's work overall, I think this idea really brought to life what I've been experiencing. I think when someone may look at my life and may say, "Oh wow, I don't know how you could ever do that," and continue pushing forward, and oh, that looks so difficult, being paralyzed, and earlier on, like being on a ventilator in the hospital for months and months, and I had to come to a point where, what is my why? What is the thing that's going to keep me getting up in the morning? Is it being completely physically healthy? Because if that's what's going to fulfill me, then I'm going to be disappointed for where I am right now. But if I have a much bigger why to my story, and I believe that the why is to follow God and make much of who He is, then I'm gonna feel much more purposeful with my day. I'm gonna recognize that my life has meaning, no matter what may be happening circumstantially, and that God's watching, and ultimately He will reward our faithfulness, and that's what keeps me going each day.
So briefly tell us the story. Take us back to November 20th, 2009, the car accident, and what ultimately led you to write this book.
So I'm a junior at the University of Cincinnati. I was on a full-ride scholarship. I was in leadership positions in my fraternity, on campus, student government. And I was having the time of my life. I really just really enjoyed everything about college life, and I really just laid out this path for myself in the future that would be prosperous business success, and just ultimately making much of myself. And so I am on the way to a retreat. I was driving along the highway, and all of a sudden I lost control of my vehicle. I overcorrected and slammed into the guardrail. And in a split second, my car is flipping over the median, and I go completely unconscious. A few minutes later, I open my eyes, really unsure of what has happened. I try to move around. Everything's dark, and I think, oh, I must be stuck. I can't move my arms, can't move my legs, can't really see anything. I'm not really sure what's happening. And my breathing started to fade, and I started to panic and wondering, is this the end? Am I dying? Thankfully, that was not the end. I was airlifted. I was taken out of the car with jaws of life, airlifted to a local emergency room. And pretty soon it was deemed that I was paralyzed below the shoulders, and not really given much hope. I was put on a ventilator and told that this would essentially be the rest of my life. So at that point, at 21 years old, everything that I had known and hoped for had essentially stopped in an instant, and I was officially battling for my life. Thankfully, all of us survived. I was quite a bit scared when I got to the hospital. I didn't realize where everyone was, but thankfully was informed that we had all made it, and still alive and doing well today.
Was anybody else hurt?
Yeah, there were a variety of injuries throughout the car. But in that moment, the biggest fear was, did this lead to death? Have my friends passed away? What have I done? There was a lot of just wondering, what are others going to think of me? Have I not only what may have happened to other people, but what was this? How does this make me look? Have I been irresponsible? Have I done something that's drastically changed not only my life but the lives of others? And thankfully, we were all able to survive and each kind of forge our own path in the years ahead.
The title, One Step Closer. What's the significance of the title of your book? One Step Closer: How a Life-Altering Accident Led Me to Everything I Almost Missed.
So, Joe, I feel like it's important to recognize that we're all one step closer to something, whether it's that dream job, that dream opportunity, the relationship we think is going to fulfill us, the opportunity that I think is going to fix everything, or one step closer that the healing that's going to make everything better in my life. And while those all are noble aspirations, and those are great things to hope for, believe for, work towards, pray for, ultimately, unless our hope is in Jesus and the fact that, hey, we're each one step closer to seeing God face to face, and we have the opportunity to be known by Him, to be loved by Him, and to ultimately spend eternity with Him. If our hope isn't anywhere else, we're going to be disappointed. And you mentioned the subtitle, how a life-altering accident led me to everything I almost missed. Well, obviously, I would never have chosen to be in a car accident that paralyzed me below the shoulders, and I wouldn't have chosen to have to move from college back into my parents' house at 21 years old. I've ultimately realized that there's so many aspects of life that I came to better understand, better appreciate as a result of what had happened, whether it be the new perspective and just appreciation for different aspects of life, a needed humbling that came about as a result of the ensuing next few years. I was able to ultimately meet my future wife. And most importantly, was able to better understand my need for a savior and turn my life to Jesus. And so I recognize there's quite a bit that I would have missed if not for this accident.
You mentioned your future wife, Stephanie. You were actually childhood sweethearts. Is that right?
We were 8 years old, second grade together, and we actually were the two lead roles in the class play. I had a big crush on her in second grade, but after that school year, we went different ways. She went to another school, and I just kind of figured I'd never see her again. But we ended up meeting back up. She was a massage therapist at the time of my accident. She heard about my accident on social media and reached out and offered to help out with massage therapy, and that just provided a neat opportunity to get to know one another. And it was very helpful for me physically, but also socially and romantically. It led to budding friendship and ultimately marriage.
So the real romantic relationship between you and Stephanie began after your accident.
Yes, I hadn't seen Stephanie since we were in elementary school together until she walked in. She walked in the room after my accident, and we were friends for a couple of years, and she helped out with massage therapy. Soon we just became really good friends and began hanging out more, talking. And a few years later, we began dating, and 2016 we officially got married.
Wow! Congratulations, man. I want to read, and talking about Stephanie, I want to read an excerpt from your book that struck a chord with me personally. It's from chapter 21, Losing My Mind, page 219. You don't love me, I yelled. I love you, Ryan, Stephanie said. You are so loved. I'm not loved, I barked back, my brow furrowed. I'm a failure. My life has no purpose. I should have just died in that accident. Finally, Stephanie realized we were getting somewhere. Tell me more about that, she said gently. With delirium eliminating my inhibitions, everything I had been attempting to suppress for so long came spilling out. I'm just a burden on you, I said. I'm a burden on everyone. I don't understand why you would love me. All I ever do is let you down. You could never let me down, Stephanie said. Ryan, in many ways, this is every man who loves his wife, who wants the best for his family, and feels like he's failing them. How did you get through this moment?
Joe, that was a tough chapter for us both to not only put on paper, but to read through and discuss and relive. And while I'm very glad we did, it was definitely emotional to go through that again. But yeah, to your question, I feel like there's definitely been aspects of wrestling with my masculinity of, okay, what does it look like to my wife? What does it look like to protect her? What does it look like to support her in the way that she needs when I feel like, oh, I'm, how am I supposed to protect her if I'm not physically able to wrestle down some intruder or put my arm around her or just feel like I can be a physically imposing presence. And so there's definitely parts of that as maybe wonder, hey, am I still a man? Can I still fulfill my role as a husband? And I think we've had to navigate that together. And thankfully I've recognized that my worth as a man, as a husband, is not defined by what I do or produce, or what I'm able to bench press, or what my physical strength is. What I'm bringing to the table is, hey, am I able to support my wife? Am I able to listen? Am I able to assure her that she's loved and that she's heard? And so I really had to kind of flip that around and recognize what is it that Stephanie actually needs. Being able to understand that, okay, I really can support her. I really can show her that she's loved, and I really can listen to her and be here for her. And that doesn't always look like just having massive biceps and being a physically imposing presence.
And how has your definition of being a man, being a husband, changed from, if you can think back to pre-accident to post-accident in your relationship with Stephanie?
So I would say before my accident, I thought, oh, if I'm going to be a man, I'm going to have to be physically fit. I'm going to have to make a big name for myself. I'm going to have a job that sounds impressive. I'm going to have to do things that the world celebrates and that the world deems as successful. And so getting to a position where different aspects of whether my physical strength or my vocational abilities, when I'm not necessarily able to perform in a way that I thought I would have to as a man, like what does it mean if I'm what does it mean if I'm not bringing in this huge income, or if I'm not able to beat down some intruder? Am I still a man? And so recognizing that yes, as a man, that I can still protect my wife. I can still listen. I can still be here for her. I can still lay out a vision for where we are as a couple. I can lead well. I can support her, and I can be here for in a way that isn't necessarily what I understood to be a much more surface level understanding of who a man is and what he does. I'm ultimately not going to be judged by God by what I do or produce. It's going to be how am I loving people? How am I ensuring that my wife knows that she's heard and she's loved?
What is your hope for Stephanie, Ryan? What do you want for her?
My hope for Stephanie is that one, that she knows that she's loved. One, that as well, that she understands that she has tremendous worth and value, and that she is just an amazing blessing, not only to me but to many others. And I want to do my best to love her in that, and just to be a sounding board to discuss with, and to, I think, just really work as a team just to move forward in our marriage.
Take us through a typical day in the life of Ryan Atkins and what you go through. And
pretty much get up at 6:30 every morning. When a nurse comes into our bedroom, she is there for the next few hours to kind of get me ready for the day, shower, get dressed, have breakfast. And so which I guess just kind of a side point on that, I think for the first few years after the accident, I feel like that was an area where I always kind of felt like I was behind. I felt like, oh, wow, at this point, I should be up, showered, dressed, on the way to work. And yet now it's middle of the morning and I've taken a few hours just to get ready for the day. And so that was definitely an area of insecurity, of wondering, hey, how am I ever going to catch up to peers? How am I ever going to really make much of my time, of my day, when so much time is spent on personal care and on getting ready and having to rely on others to help me. So that's essentially most of the morning. I'm thankfully now able to use my computer, which has been very helpful for writing a book, for starting a blog, connecting with people via email, social media, using the internet, reading. I'm able to do everything through voice software on my computer. So as soon as I'm ready for the day, I'm able to jump on my laptop with voice software. I definitely try to get up in my standing frame for at least a few minutes every day. That just allows me to get weight into my bones and really just stand up. And I really enjoy the opportunity to look at Stephanie face to face and actually be standing up 6 feet tall rather than sitting in a chair or a bed like I am most of the rest of the time. But thankfully get to enjoy a great dinner with my wife each night. We have not been able to get out as much as we'd like to, but it provides an opportunity for us to just connect and be one-on-one. And I think with my lack of ability to use technology sometimes, whether it's picking up the phone or being focused on something else on a device because I'm really not able to pick it up or do that, I think it's really opened this window where we can connect and talk on a deeper level that I may not have otherwise taken the time for. But most days are relatively the same. I wouldn't say they're the most exciting, but I've appreciated the opportunities that come up, whether it's a speaking engagement or getting to have a conversation with you like today, or just getting to have the opportunity to share more of my story, whether it's writing it through my book, my blog, or whatever the avenue may be, to hopefully just encourage others that while circumstances may not go how we always would like on this earth, there's a God who loves us and who has an eternal home that is going to be amazing. And I believe that Jesus is the best way to live a meaningful life on this earth. And that's the hope that I hope that I can communicate that with others.
You mentioned earlier about where you thought you were heading, and you had these kind of general hopes and dreams and ideas of where you were heading. Where were you back then, before the accident? before November 20th, 2009. Where was Ryan Atkins heading?
Well, in my mind, I thought, I'm going to make a big name for myself. I'm going to make a ton of money in the business world. I'm going to travel. I'm going to live by a golf course. I'm just going to basically make the most of my time, the most of my life in a way that ultimately was celebrating my own success. And I didn't really dawn on me at the time that, this is actually just all about me. But it took some time. It took some humbling from the circumstance after the accident to recognize that, actually I'd been thinking to myself all along, and while working hard and making money and wanting to live a purposeful life is not necessarily like bad ambitions or anything, but there was I left no room for anything else in my life, no room for following Jesus. And I ultimately, thankfully, was able to recognize my need for a savior after the accident. And I've had quite a bit of a perspective shift in the time since.
Where are you heading now?
Where am I heading now? I would say right now, I want to continue to make the most of my days. And yeah, days are difficult. I may be in pain. I may be frustrated about opportunities that I feel like are kind of may have slipped through my grasp, or just want to be able to connect with others on a deeper level that sometimes is difficult in what can be an isolating situation with felt like I'm kind of stuck inside a lot. But I want to make the most of my time. I want to continue to communicate with others that hope is possible no matter what our circumstances may be. And yeah, I don't believe my story's over. I believe that God is still working in my life. I still believe that physical healing is possible. But unlike earlier, the first few years after my accident, I'm not going to sit around waiting for that anymore. I used to think like, okay, as soon as I get healed, I'm going to go back to college, or I'm going to look into dating again, or I'm going to write my book. And I had to come to the realization that life is not just waiting for our perfect scenario to come to fruition. Life's going to barrel ahead, whether we want to or not, no matter what our circumstances may be. So I want to do everything I can to not just passively allow time to slip by, hoping for stuff to change, but to take action now and continue to pray and believe that that God can make this time meaningful and make the most of my time and be able to stand in front of God and hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant."
You mentioned healing, Ryan, and you believe in healing, and God, at least in the physical sense, has not healed you yet. You're not able to walk. You're still confined by this condition. What are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about the idea of healing and how healing happens, and where healing is going to take you?
Yeah, that's definitely been quite a journey over the past decade. Well, first, when I first got home after the accident, I put so much energy into my physical rehab. Like, I'm going to beat this. Like, doctors don't know what they're talking about. I'm going to be back on my feet because I worked so hard, and I'm going to be celebrated for my own heroic success overcoming paralysis. And about a year later, when nothing really changed in my physical body, I really hit rock bottom and thinking, okay, now what do I do? If I can't beat this on my own, where do I turn? And that's really when my spiritual journey began, because I grew up in a Christian home. I knew about the Bible. I knew about Jesus being a healer. I just never really thought I had a need for it. And so I'm thinking, okay, this is a guy that healed the paralyzed man. Hey, why don't you throw some of that my way? And so I really began seeking healing and seeking Jesus as healer. And I believe that God really used that to draw me in. And so my mindset really changed from not just seeking healing, but seeking the healer himself. And through that process and recognizing my need for a savior and wanting my life to reflect that difference of beliefs, well, I still recognize, well, Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And he has healed the paralyzed in the past. And I believe he can still do that today. And just because it hasn't happened in the time frame since in the first 12 years doesn't mean that my story is over and that, oh, this is past God's arbitrary deadline. But at the same time, I don't want to. I think early on I made the mistake of, oh, I need to wait to move forward until God does this. Whereas I want to keep moving forward and take action with where I am right now with what I can do. But at the same time, believe that God, I believe you can heal me. I believe you can get me back on my feet. And I'm not going to give up on that, believing that Jesus tells us to pray and not give up. And so I think it's all about keeping a healthy balance there.
So many of us do that. You just happen to do that being a quadriplegic, right? So many of us do that, Ryan. So many of us wait. We want to wait for perfect circumstances. We want to wait for perfect circumstances. We want to wait until we're in the right relationship, or we want to wait until we're out of the relationship. We want to wait until we have the perfect job or the perfect house or whatever the situation is. We wait and wait and wait for the perfect situation before we take action, before we move forward with our life's dreams and our life's goals and seek God's path for us. We think that we have to wait for this perfect position in life. This, in your case, who wouldn't want to wait till God has healed them to move forward in life? But you didn't do that. You said, okay, this is God's timing, not mine. I have to move forward. I have to take action. God, because that's what God wants from us, right? He wants us to take action regardless of the circumstance. He wants us to move forward, to grow closer to him, to follow his path, regardless of our circumstances.
Definitely. And at the same time, I did do that. I did passively wait for a season. I thought, I'll just wait a few more months. I'll wait a few more months to go back and get my degree. I'll wait a little bit longer to start dating. And so that's definitely played into it. But I think through that, I recognize, hey, nothing's going to change if I just stay in the same place. If I don't get moving, I'm not going to ultimately move forward and accomplish what I want to do if I'm just waiting for everything to be in a perfect scenario. So thankfully that I was able to see pretty soon, hey, if I don't get moving, I'm not really going to be happy with where I end up. And so I think we all need to come to a place where we can point out those areas in life where we may be hesitating and recognizing that God can meet us where we are and fill in the gaps for areas that we may not be as sure about moving forward in.
How do you help people are changed, Ryan, by reading One Step Closer?
So the biggest theme that I want to communicate in this book is the power of embracing an eternal perspective. I believe that when we recognize that we are going to spend millions and millions of years for all of eternity somewhere after this life, and I believe that Jesus is the only way to God, and that when we recognize that we have a really short time on this earth, and we're going to be rewarded based on our life here, based on our faithfulness to who God is, and that those rewards play out in all of eternity. And I want my life to count here on this earth. I want it to be one that points to who God is. And ultimately for others to recognize that no matter what we may be putting our hopes in, or putting our dreams in, that everything in this life is going to disappoint us in some way. It could be the job, it could be the relationship, it could be that dream we've had, that home, that trip, and ultimately this earth is not going to satisfy our deepest longings in the way that only Jesus can.
Ryan, do you mind if we talk about your personal faith?
Let's do it, Joe.
How did you come to believe in Jesus Christ?
So I grew up in a Christian home. My family went to church most weeks, but I really didn't see my need for a savior. I was very focused on my own life, sports, grades, moving forward with college and career goals. That it always just kind of was on the back burner, and so it took being in a traumatic car accident. It took a year of recognizing, no matter what I do physically to try to get my body back, I can't do this on my own. And I had to get to a place where hitting rock bottom and recognizing I can't do this on my own, and I need a savior. And that's when Jesus met me where I was, and it started with a desire for healing, but recognizing that rather than just healing, I want to seek the healer himself. And so that's really where my spiritual journey began to take off.
Is Stephanie a believer as well?
She is. And her journey kind of essentially began on a very similar time frame, in that those early days of she'd come over, help me with massage therapy, stretching, just help my body in any way. It really led to some great conversations about what we believed about life, about God, about our purpose. And that really forged a lot of the early connections in our relationship and allowed us to grow.
At what point did you realize there's something here? There's something about this woman. There's something about the way we're connecting.
Yeah, I would say about a year in, it definitely transitioned from just professional to thinking, hey, you know what? This is a genuine friendship. As time went on, probably another year or so later, recognize, hey, there's a lot of aspects of this woman that I'm interested in. I loved her heart for others, her willingness to just help people, and she's a great listener, and just very empathetic. I loved. We just had fun together. We had deep conversations. We both just trying to figure out, hey, where are our lives going? What do we believe about God? And I think as those conversations evolved, it really led to a genuine friendship and ultimately a romantic relationship.
Ryan, since becoming a Christian, have you ever questioned your faith or maybe even the existence of God?
I wouldn't necessarily say I've questioned the existence of God. I would say more that I've maybe questioned what I believe about God, or ultimately like how I'm understanding what I'm hearing from God. I think early on I may have had some incorrect assumptions about who God is and what that means for me, rather than, I think just part of it was, I believe in God and I'm going to pray. And therefore, because I have faith, I'm going to get healing in this amount of time, and everything's going to work out perfectly, and I'll give God the credit. And obviously that's not how it works. And God, we don't always understand his ways, and his ways are way higher than ours. But if God was made in my liking and exactly how I would see God, then I would have got my healing in the first few days, and I would have got all those dreams and aspirations that I thought were so important to me at the time. I would have gotten right back into that and missed out on so much of the past decade. But I would say not necessarily have doubted the existence of God, but more so have had to refine my understanding of who he is and what his plans are for me.
After all you've been through, it would have been real easy for you to just turn your back on God and to think that, number one, God doesn't exist, or number two, if he does exist, he let this happen to me and I don't like him. This is BS, God. And how could you let this happen to me? But you don't seem to have done that. Why haven't you turned your back on God?
Well, first of all, I've seen him at work. I've seen his power. I know that he exists, and I know that he is for me. And it reminds me of the story in the Gospel of John when Jesus is saying some really difficult things, and people are starting to fall away, and like, who is this guy? Is he crazy? What's he telling us to do? And there's only a few disciples left, and they're kind of thinking, what do we do here? Do we really want to keep following this guy? People think we're crazy. And Jesus looks at them and says, hey, what do you guys want to do? You want to leave too? And the guys say, hey, this may be a hard word, but we know that you have the way to life, and we're going to keep following you. And I would say that story really, really resonates with me. I'm thinking, yes, there's aspects of God that may be confusing, maybe difficult, and we may not get exactly what we want in the time frame we want on this life. But I know that Jesus is the only way, and that when I'm best understanding that and choosing to align myself with Him, I believe that's the only way to go, and I want to form my life around it.
Do you want God to heal you, Ryan?
I do. I think about the story a lot. The pool of Bethesda, Jesus says, what do you want me to do for you? Do you want to be healed? And I think for a while I kind of wondered, like, well, of course, like what kind of question is that? But I think it really points to what Jesus is getting at. I think often we can get our identity tied to a situation, whether it's, well, this is who I am now. Do I really want to get out of this situation? Do I really feel worthy that God would be willing to do that? And I think it makes us be bold and be audacious in what we think or believe. And I even wrestle with that sometimes now. Even saying like, oh yeah, I believe that God can heal me. I believe that God answers prayer. I believe that He can heal me. I think sometimes there's the hesitation of like, oh, are people going to think I'm crazy? And similar to people in the Bible, we're going after Jesus for healing. Many people would stop him and say, oh, don't bother the teacher. Oh, you wait your turn. And I don't want to worry about stuff like that. I want to be bold. I want to be audacious about approaching God's throne. And yes. So long answer to that one. Yes. I want God to heal me still.
Finally, as we wrap up, what would you say to that person that is right on faith's edge, making that choice to believe or not to believe in God?
I would say I would like that person to really take inventory of their life and to recognize and to really look, hey, what are these areas of my life that I'm looking to for fulfillment? Where am I looking to for hope? Where are my plans for the future? Are those on solid ground, the solid ground of the never-changing God? Is the same yesterday, today, and forever? Or is it built on sinking sand, something that could be lost in a day, lost in a second? And I think during the pandemic over the past year, I think a lot of us recognize that, like, oh, everything that we thought may have been a rock solid guarantee, whether it's our physical health or our finances or some job opportunity or, oh, that trip or that dream house. Well, a lot of those things got stripped away over the past year. And when we take inventory of where are we putting our hope and what can actually sustain us, I believe that Jesus is the only one who can, and that's where I want to put my faith.
I don't think we can say anything more than that. The book is One Step Closer: How a Life-Altering Accident Led Me to Everything I Almost Missed by Ryan Atkins. Ryan, thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Joe, great to be here with you today. I really enjoyed listening to your show, the variety of guests, and some great conversations. So enjoyed being with you today.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, man. Ryan's website is ryansatkins.com. That's ryansatkins.com. ryansatkins.com. ryansatkins.com, where you can find out more about him, his book, One Step Closer, as well as read his insightful blog, Flat on My Back. I'll put his website, links to the book, and his social media links in today's show notes at onfaithsedge.com/129. That's onfaithsedge.com/129. And if you want to contact me, I'm most active on Twitter at 4JoeTaylor. That's FORJOETAYLOR, or you can contact me at onfaithsedge.com/contact. I love bringing you engaging conversations about faith. And if this show entertained you, encouraged you, informed you, or brought value to you in any way whatsoever, will you consider financially backing the show? The best way you can do that right now is just use any Amazon link at onfaithsedge.com. We'll get a modest commission from the purchase, but it doesn't cost you a penny more. Well, that'll wrap up today's show. Thank you so much to Ryan Atkins for being with us. What an amazing story. You're an amazing human being, an amazing man. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for listening. You mean a lot to me, and you mean a lot to this show. Remember, God is real. He loves you, and so do I. God bless.